Pennsylvania, and he owns Advanced Academy, a real estate school. He can help you with home buying and selling questions. We'll be discussing mortgages and all things real estate with you for the next 30 minutes. Ask the Realtor on 1270 AM WCBC.
And a very pleasant good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday, it's 12:30. That means we have a show to talk about real estate on 1270 AM. Adam Conrad joins us here. Adam from Perry Wellington Real Estate. Hi.
Good morning, Paul. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. You know, in recent weeks, we've talked a little bit about how the market around us here in Cumberland and also in general in the region is a seller's market. That being said, there are quite a few homes which haven't had the results the seller expected, and we want to talk about that today. What happens when you run in, I guess it's your self-constructed brick wall?
Right. Well, you think, you look around and you see other houses flying off the market, and you think, hey, let's jump into that and take advantage of a market that's strong. I wouldn't say that it's, houses are moving like hotcakes, but, the market's much better than it's been in past years. So a lot of folks see that and think, it's time to get into the market. Let's put our house on. And then they're disappointed when they don't see the results that others are seeing.
So you get caught in that. What do you do? We've talked in the past that there's quick turnaround time these days because of all the homework that people can do on their own, online and everything. If your home goes beyond, how long should you maybe start reconsidering, and when is it time to panic?
Well, there's a phase. We'll call it the honeymoon phase of listing your property, and that runs around 3 or 4 weeks. When you first put it on the market and it debuts onto the market, the buyers that have been looking for homes, that are the pool of buyers that are in the market to buy a home right now, will be exposed to your property instantly. In prior years, folks would wait till the Saturday newspaper came out and look for homes there, or they'd call their trusted realtor who would tell them, hey, there's some new properties that just hit the market. Let me get out my sheets of paper. Let me get out the book, and I'll get back to you after I riffle through some pages and find the right house for you. But those days have really changed quite a bit, Paul. Today's buyer has on their mobile phone, which, we call these phones, but they're really pocket computers. So everybody's got one. So everyone, there you go. So show that to the camera because we're doing a little filming, right?
Yeah.
So these pocket computers folks have, when a new house hits the market, buyers have already set up with a predefined search that matches the criteria of the homes that they're looking for. So just to give you an example, I'm working with some friends of mine who are looking for a home in another market, and their criteria is 2 to 3 bedrooms, 1 to 2 baths, probably around $130,000 to $150,000 price point. So they've got a search that, and they have certain area they want to live in. They have probably about a 3 or 4 mile radius that they want to live in. And so they've defined this with all of the search criteria. So when a new house hits the market, bing, a little alarm goes off and an alert comes up and tells them, hey, a new house has been listed that matches your search criteria.
Yeah, kind of like you're getting an email right away.
Right, so it's really instantaneous. I mean, within 15 minutes of it being listed for sale, they are on top of it. And frankly, and maybe this is just me, but I'm gonna say there's a lot of agents are in the same spot. I can't keep up with that. I can't even begin to keep up with that. I mean, the buyer has got a hyper local search that they're running that's very specific to their needs, and I may get an alert that, hey, this new property just came on the market that matches one of your buyer's criteria. But they're looking at every house that meets their criteria, and they're very hyper local about it. So it is amazing how fast they jump on us. And I'll get texts right away. They'll say, "Hey, did you see that house over on 27th Street that just got listed?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, right, yeah."
Well, it's almost like you got the advance on this that you don't get.
Right. Yeah. It's really uncanny how the buyers are really in charge of this process of the homes that they're searching for, and frankly, one of the reasons why, kind of shameless plug here, why we're able to do 4.5% is because that part of the sorting and selecting process for the buyers is no longer our domain. I mean, it's not to say that realtors don't bring value that way. We can still suggest to them homes that that meet their criteria, but the buyers are all over this. They're on Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. There's all kinds of different websites that they can go to put this criteria in, and it pops in and tells them exactly what's come up, in their search.
So they're doing that, but from our other end of the equation, from the seller perspective, I guess sometimes there's that magic match that comes up right away.
Right. So if you've priced your home, now, this is why I think it's good to take a deep dive on what's going on with the buyer, because as a seller, I think sellers in the past thought, that you could put a house on the market. Say the house really should be priced at 150, Paul, but you've priced it at 170 just to kind of test the market to see if you could get that much. So based on that approach, and now I've explained to you how my buyers are working, you missed. Because if they're not seeing 170, first off, and if they were to expand their search to 170, they say, well, your house really looks like every other house that I'm seeing that really looks like 150. So they're automatically, not the least of which we can get into the websites actually try to price the homes and come up with a suggested price. But the buyer will know based on their analysis, that house really is outside, it's not priced right. I can look at these others and see that these are all really clustered very close together, and that one at 170 is really an outlier. It really is sticking out, and it's too expensive, so I'm going to just skip it altogether.
Okay, we're in the baseball playoffs now, okay?
Yeah, okay,
so basically you're telling me that when I'm listing a property for a price, I've already got 2 strikes on me.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because if you don't price it and put it, it's basically like a strike zone. If you don't throw the ball, you don't put that heat down the middle, it's going to be called a ball. You've got to be inside the box to be in consideration. So to use a baseball analogy, right? So you have to get it priced appropriately, or people are going to say, no, that's a miss. You missed out on that particular item. Yeah.
And for the most part, people don't know you. So they don't know, you don't have a reputation out there that you're going to fall back on, and they're going to say, well, he said 170, so it should be 170.
Right, exactly. So they're going to look at that, the buyers are going to look at your price that you've set, and they're going to say, I don't think so. And so traditionally, people would expect that the buyer would still come by and look at the home, and then, just shoot me an offer, make me an offer, just, let's negotiate. And the buyer, we've talked about that before, buyers today don't negotiate. They're used to going out to Amazon or a website, and they're looking for the best price, and they just buy from the best price and the best, what we call landed cost. It's the price of the item plus the delivery fee to get it to the door. And they'll look at time too. They don't want to wait 2 weeks for something if they can have it in 2 days for close to the same price. But today's buyer's really not going to wait around, and they're not going to call you up to try to dicker with you over the price. They're going to say, that's just not, we're not going to look at that one. It's too high price. When they may wait till that price gets reduced, and then they'll take a look at it. But that's kind of a big risk that you're taking, assuming that buyer's going to revisit that property later.
Yeah, so what do? You have overpriced. Let's say it's an innocent mistake. You weren't being greedy. Mm-hmm. You just thought that's what it was worth. You don't see much after your first month.
Right.
Much activity. Then you're sitting there. You got your property. You have taken strike 3, and you're hoping for another at bat.
Right. Yeah. So at this point, I think after 3 or 4 weeks, you need to call. You really need to have a chat with your realtor, and reevaluate the comps that are in your market. You basically want to look at when we say comps, we're talking about the comparative sales. We call them comps. This is that realtor speak, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll do a CMA. We do a CMA on the way in. So before we list a property, we do a comparative market analysis and look at the other properties. This is not an appraisal. This is just the realtor is pulling in the data from the local MLS and saying, multiple listing service, and saying, here's what's sold that looks like your house. Does this look right? And the seller still always picks the price. We don't pick the price for them. The seller picks the price, and we try to give them some guidance on the price. But we're not appraisers, so we're not allowed to tell them exactly what the price should be. We can just say, here's the comparables. if I were you, I'd list it for this kind
Yeah,
of a
I was
suggestion.
going to say, do you give them some tough love sometimes? We've mentioned before that your house is the most attractive to you because you've lived there, you know all the history, and you have the emotional attachment and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like if you're looking at a bunch of pictures of school kids.
Right.
And your kid's one of them, you're going to say, hey, good-looking kid there.
You've always got the cutest looking kids. So yeah, that's the part of the challenge is that this people view their home differently than any other asset. You have this terrible amount of emotional attachment to a property, a lot of sweat equity and time and work spent on a property. So it's very difficult to separate that from the pure pricing angle. So. So there's a lot of things that go into that price, but the bottom line is when you price it and you put it on the market and you hear, crickets, there's no noise, no activity, then you really need to come back and revisit it and say, get your realtor back in. Let's take another look at what's sold in the last month. What's the activity look like? And it's now time to make a price adjustment. And we have some guidelines for price adjuststments.
I was going to say, okay, you missed on the first one, you're going to go back out, and you want to do it quickly because if you've gone to the market, basically, I'm thinking that you want to sell pretty quickly.
Right.
You just don't put it out there and say, we're going to list it at 170 and wait until the market comes to us.
Right. Yeah. It's part of that is your motivation. So if you're in a hurry, you need to make a fast sale. It's going to be a little bit different than if you are trying to just match days on market for properties of your type. And that's another important question to ask when you're talking to your agent is, okay, so I'm selling a $400,000 house. What's the days on market in Allegheny County for a $400,000 house versus what's the days on market for a $100,000 house? Those two numbers are significantly different, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so that matters. And so what you want to try to do is get it priced so you can match the days on market so you look like normal inventory. So if you didn't get a hit on it at that point, then we recommend a couple of criteria. One is if you're not getting showings at all, like no showings, the crickets, right? No noise. No showings at all mean you're at a minimum 10 to 12% off on your price. Minimum. I mean, it could be more, but the first swipe you're going to take that's probably 10 to 12%. So $170,000 house.
Okay, so if you were doing the 170, that would be 17 to 20,000, getting you down to the 150.
Brilliant, and I really did not prepare. I did not expect any math. I just picked those numbers out of the air. But it's magical how these things work out. $20,000. If you're overpriced $20,000, that's that 12%. I mean, it's right off the top. So you're really looking at make that 20,000. And a lot of folks would be like, man, are you sure, Adam? $20,000? That seems like an awful lot. And let me be. I got to dive into something else here, and
okay.
that's important because the seller looks at this like, look, because when offers start to come in, you may get an offer at 140. And the seller's going to say, man, I started at 170. What am I even considering an offer at 140 for? Right?
And they think it's money coming out of their pocket.
Right. And this is a huge danger we run into. When we start out with a property that started out too high and we had to make that adjustment, the seller, when the offers come in, base their analysis off of that inflated, unrealistic price that they started at and say, well, I've already knocked 20,000 off the price. I'm not dropping in another 10,000. When in fact they should have been at 150 in the first place, right? And now they're negotiating in a normal market at 10,000. The buyer says I want 140. You're really at 150, and so you start negotiating. Maybe you wind up at let's just say you meet in the middle at 145, which is a whole other strategy we'll talk about later. But that's a $5,000 discount. That's what 3% off. A lot of markets, I would have to check with this market, but I know the Altoona market, Blair Bedford markets, the average house sells for about 93% of list price. So 93,000 on 100. So if you sold your house for 145 on 150, did we say there's going to be math in this today, Paul? So if you're 3% off list price,
hey, there's
you're
no
doing
texting
good.
while driving, and there's no math while talking. Okay?
Right. So the bottom line is, if you could sell your house, if you're at 150 and you sell your house at 145, I think you're doing good. But the problem is the seller will look at that and say, I started at 170, this is too low. And that becomes a huge barrier to the seller getting their house sold, is that when they get no activity at the first price and it drops to where it should be, that's really what you should be negotiating off of, and that's where your head should be. not off of the inflated 170 price. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I could see where somebody would say that, hey, I'm losing $25,000, $30,000 out of
Exactly
this
right.
transaction off the top.
Right.
But I guess that's why honesty and trust up front is where all of the credibility lies.
Exactly right. And this is where sellers get, frustrated because they think, I've given up too much. I'm helping the buyer too much, because the buyer may even come in and ask for, they may say, look, I'll pay $150, but I want you to give me, $7,000 or $10,000 in seller's assist to help me with the closing costs. And the seller gets very frustrated. Say, well, I've already given you $20,000 off. Now you're coming back to the well for more. And I think it's really important to be very careful up front. I mean, this is a challenge we're faced with as realtors, is to get that price at $150 up front. That way you're not having these discussions about property based on a $170 price, but rather off the $150 price that's more accurate. That makes sense.
And a lot of this, folks, coming back from how quickly real estate is transacting these days, because, you got to come out of the box strong, and if you don't, we talked about baseball. I guess it's probably more of comparing what used to be a marathon is now more of a dash.
Exactly right. Well, and in a perfect comparison, Monday afternoon, Monday evening, I listed a cabin near, it's right up against 65,000 acres of state game lands up in Pennsylvania. And we listed that Monday evening. Went onto the internet, started to syndicate. So yesterday we got our first showing request. I've got 2 more showing requests this morning. We got a swarm of activity on this. This property's never hit a newspaper yet. It's not been on our TV show. It's not been in our traditional marketing channels. I hope to have it sold before it even hits the newspaper.
I would imagine the fact that you have hunting season coming up very quickly and abutting this period probably helps a little bit with the marketing, huh?
Timing was everything here. I talked to these folks months ago about listing this property, and I said, look, whatever you do, you got to make sure this thing is finished for hunting season, so that hunters are going to come by there. It's adjacent to the state game land, so they're going to come by there. They're going to see our sign. They're going to call, and if they want to make that a hunting lodge, that's going to be a big plus. It's $119,000. It's 4 bedrooms. I mean, that's going to be, and it's all remodeled. So somebody's really going to, I mean, that thing will fly off the market. It'll be gone.
Yeah, that sounds like that would be a prime property.
I agree. And I actually suggested to the seller that they listed for $129. I was actually higher. The seller actually went with a lower price than what I suggested, which is very atypical. I'm not used to that, Paul, but I said, look, I think you could go to 129 here. And they said, I'm comfortable with 119. I think if we can get 119 out of it, I'm comfortable with that. I said, all right, it's your house, your call. And so I expect it to move pretty rapidly.
Are they hunters?
Yes, absolutely. But they've got other properties. So this was
okay.
They bought this as speculated on this. It was a foreclosure property that they purchased, and they remodeled it. It needed a bunch of remodeling. They remodeled it with the intention of flipping it and selling it. So it's a flip house.
It's a flip house, but it's a flip house with benefits.
I'm telling you, on an acre of ground right up against the state game lands, it'll sell quick.
That's great.
Yeah, we
well,
like
that's a happy ending there.
It truly is. Of course, here I am speculating that I'm acting like we're cashing our commission check already. But no, we'll keep you posted as this transpires.
Well, if there's a soft tossing right-hander throwing 80 miles an hour and you got the home run hitter up there, it's going to happen, don't you?
Exactly right. Yeah, you'll take it as it comes.
I guess the other thing about properties is, and you brought that up there with this one, if you can have some sort of angle.
Oh yeah.
That makes, like, I live in a neighborhood that used to be a half a block from an elementary school. Now it's a half a block from a Head Start center. It's a little bit different there, but
sure.
When it was a half a block from an elementary school, I saw properties in our neighborhood move a little bit quicker than they do now.
Right. No, and that's, I love a story. I mean, it's one of the things I like about real estate. And I get on the radio and talk about our stories, but there's always a story. It's great to have a story about a property, it adds, it adds some, it adds an element to the property, no question, that you can talk about things like, here's some of the benefits. We do have to be careful, obviously, about fair housing type rules. We have to be careful about saying that the property is beside a synagogue or a church or those types of things. But at the same time, there's lots of area preferences to a home that make it very valuable. And a lot of times we like to talk about, the fact that it's adjacent to game lands is a huge variable. I mean, that's a huge advantage for a property like that a property down the road won't have.
We have some of that around here. I think what we have more of in the Cumberland area is history.
Yes.
Does history sell?
History does sell. A lot of folks, there are groups of folks that love historic properties. There are people that don't like historic properties. It just depends. You're looking for that right type of person that likes. Even our office here on Washington Street has a bit of a story. It's got a bunch of stained glass in it. And there's some speculation that it has some Tiffany glass. Tiffany did some of the glass because yes, Tiffany has history here in Cumberland. So I didn't know any of that, and that was kind of interesting to see all this leaded glass. And it's got huge, it's got a set of leaded glass double doors that are just gorgeous in the home.
Some things that went away over the years was Cumberland used to have a number of glass factories.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Cumberland also had breweries.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Well, we need to bring some of those back.
Yeah, it could be happening. We're having the microbrewery going in over there at the footer. So that's going to be part historical tie there. But, we have a lot of history in the area, and I don't know do you want to be history or do you want to be close to history? I think we can probably get to both ends.
Yeah, it's really, all those things come into play when it comes to marketing your property. And it's nice to have a story. It's nice to have an angle on the property. But at the end of the day, the buyers are going to look at price, value. They're going to do their analysis. They do it all online now. So as a seller, it's critical that you price your property right. And then kind of the topic of this of today was, when do you make the adjustment if something went, if it didn't sell yet, why didn't it sell? Price definitely moves the market. So at a price, everything will sell.
Yeah, we know you might be 10 to 12% higher, and maybe the market's going to take you another 5 or 6% below that. But when do you do it? When is the panic button time? I know we have that honeymoon period in there that we talked about. A month and a half?
Well, the honeymoon period is when you're going to get the most of your activity, and then after that honeymoon period, you remember these are all the buyers that are currently in the market that are pent up waiting to pounce on your house when it hits. And if you failed in the honeymoon period, now what you're waiting for is buyers who hit the market on a normal interval. So now you're looking at the people that pop into the market, every month, and that's a smaller pool of people. So then it becomes a matter of the waiting game, right? The patience of, the days on market. If the days on market are 110 days for properties in your type, in your price category, then you really need to probably wait that out or close to that, knowing that there's a normal distribution of buyers that are going to come in. It's kind of like a bell curve, right? The old bell curve, right? So you have, the height of your activity. Actually, it isn't a bell curve when I think about it. It's actually like a slope. The height of your activity is when you start, and then it trails off, and so it's got kind of a long tail to it. Yeah. So the way to goose that and get more activity in it is to adjust the price. So a month and a half, 2 months out, probably within 60 days, you're definitely going to make a price adjustment. And at that point, what you should see is showings. And you should see a lot of showings on your property. If you're getting showings, but you're not getting offers, then we need to make another price adjustment, believe it or not. And that's the 5 to 6% price adjustment that tells you that you're priced to get people in the door, but people are not making offers. So that 5 to 6% adjustment we recommend is to get offers to occur. And when you do that, then then you should be priced pretty spot on. You should be in the spot where you're getting offers and getting your deal done.
Yeah, I guess the rule is a property is not worth more or less than what the market says.
That's how you know what a property is worth. I mean, they talk about market value is what you price it at is what it should sell for. Market price is what it's sold for. It's just that simple.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. By the way, Adam Conrad with Wellington Realty here in Cumberland, and they have the 4.5% commission rate, and we ought to touch on that in regard to this and how that might help you a little bit more if you've maybe not. Maybe you don't know what you're doing, okay? Mm-hmm. and to tell you the truth, folks, whenever I talk real estate, and when I first started doing this show, I said, what do I know? And I'm learning more and more as I get going, but we're only hitting the tip of the iceberg here. And you want to help out sellers, buyers, and everyone, but that 4.5% commission rate seems to, I don't want to use the term grease the skids, but it greases the gears.
Well, if you think about this in contrast, we came into the Cumberland market, we see frequently 7% commission is charged, or 6% commission. There's no set commission, so we can't say that it's always this, but we see quite a few times that the commission rate's 7%. So what's the commission on $150,000? 7%, 7,000 plus that's $10,500, right? Is 7% commission and so that's a big chunk.
That's a nice check.
Yeah, so we're charging 4.5% commission. So take 4,500 plus half of that, 6,750. 6,750 would be the commission you'd pay on a Perry Wellington home sold for $150,000. That's a pretty big. I mean, that's close to $4,000. It's $3,750, almost $4,000. That's the difference between maybe making your deal happen or not. I mean, simply that $3,750, almost $4,000, could be the difference in the negotiating between you and your buyer to get the deal done. That's a big chunk.
Yeah, it is. Well, when I was looking at 4.5%, and I was looking at the other rule, 5 to 6%, I said, that's pretty close to what you might have to do in order to get your home sold, and you are absorbing that as the real estate agent rather than the buyer taking on as much of that if you're using that 4.5%. That's the golden rule.
Right, and not to get too deep into this topic, but real estate is a zero-sum game, Paul. There's not much we as brokers can do to change the number of homes sold in Cumberland, but what we did with the 4.5% commission rate, a lot of people misunderstand. They think that this is a discount, that we're a discount broker, and that we're somehow not doing the same job, and nothing could be further from the truth. We are doing, we have newspaper ads, we're on the internet, we have a radio show, we're doing all these things to help sell real estate. And what we did was basically say, look, if there's 1,000 homes going to be sold this year in Cumberland, we're going to get a piece of those by offering a reduced or an aggressive commission rate that helps people have some savings when it comes time to sell their home.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. So we said we weren't going to talk about math, but you got to do the math. If you do
exactly.
The math,
it's a lot of math.
You don't have to do a lot of math. You can just kind of look at numbers and say, hey, 4.5% is a lot better than 6 or 7 or even 4 3/4.
Right.
It's better than that even.
And the most important thing about that is there's no hidden fees and no gimmicks. We started adding that to their advertising because, and like every market we go into, there's always there's some suspicion or some, folks think, well, this is too good to be true, so there must be a catch. There's not a catch, folks. It's just that simple. You list your home with us for 4.5%. We get your home sold like we would any other home or any other broker would do, and we just charge 4.5% to do it. It makes it pretty simple.
Either you get more money out of the transaction yourself, or you have a little bit more room, a little bit more breathing room, let's call it that, to make a deal with somebody that wants your home, and the market might not be agreeing with you rather than with them.
Well, I can tell you right now, if there's 2 houses on the block and they're both priced at $150, it's a toss-up who's going to sell first. But if one's $150 and one is $3,750 less expensive, you just I don't know what the math on that's $146,250. Yeah. So if you priced yours at $146,250, you will absolutely sell your house faster than the folks that are listed at $150. Wouldn't you expect? You'd expect that.
Yeah, you would expect it. And that's what logic dictates. And the market dictates, logic dictates that 4.5% is a good way to go.
You bet.
All right. Perry Wellington Real Estate in Cumberland. Your number, sir?
The number locally here is 240-979-4660.
And I always ask you because you're on the road and you take calls from people. You
Yeah.
answer your cell phone.
My my phone's lit up in the last half hour, but I'm at 814-934-5246.
All right, join us again next Wednesday at 12:30 for Ask the Realtor on 1270 AM WCBC Cumberland.